DreamWorks never wanted to give us perfect heroes, clean-cut champions who always did the right thing. They gave us something messier, something broken, something real. They gave us anti-heroes. From the very beginning, DreamWorks understood that the most interesting characters aren't the ones who start good. They're the ones who start selfish, bitter, or lost, and choose to become something better. For nearly 3 decades, they've shown us that redemption is possible, that villainy isn't permanent, and that sometimes the bad guy makes the best hero. Let's break it all down. Antz, 1998. Z wasn't a hero. He was a neurotic worker ant who hated his life and questioned everything. In a colony built on conformity, Z complained. Therapy talked his way through problems and didn't fit in. He wasn't trying to save anyone. He just wanted to escape. But when he discovered General Mandible's plan to destroy the worker ants, Z had to choose between running or standing up. Woody Allen's voice made Z anxious and self-deprecating, but oddly brave. DreamWorks' first film established their pattern: flawed protagonists who stumble into heroism rather than seek it. The Prince of Egypt, 1998. Moses grew up as Egyptian royalty, living in denial about where he came from. He enjoyed privilege while his people suffered. When he discovered he was Hebrew, his identity shattered. He killed an Egyptian guard in rage and fled into the desert, abandoning everyone. For years, Moses tried to forget, but God called him back, and Moses made excuses, claimed he wasn't capable, begged for someone else to do it. His confrontation with Ramesses, his brother, broke both of them. DreamWorks showed that being chosen doesn't mean being ready, and doing the right thing can cost you everything you love. Shrek 2001. Shrek didn't want to save anyone. He wanted to be left alone. An ogre living in a swamp, feared by everyone, Shrek built walls around himself. When fairy tale creatures invaded his home, he made a deal with Lord Farquaad to get his swamp back. Rescuing Princess Fiona was a job, not a quest. He complained the entire way. But Fiona saw past his exterior, and Donkey refused to leave him alone. When Shrek crashed Fiona's wedding and confessed his feelings, DreamWorks delivered their message: you don't have to be conventionally good to be worthy of love. Shrek revolutionized animated protagonists. He was grumpy, crude, and selfish, but he was also lonely, scared of rejection, and capable of change. Spirit, Stallion of the Cimarron, 2002. Spirit was wild, untamable, and defiant. He refused to be broken by the cavalry. He fought every attempt to domesticate him and risked his life repeatedly for freedom. His partnership with Little Creek wasn't immediate trust. It was earned through mutual respect. DreamWorks celebrated his wildness rather than taming it. Sinbad, Legend of the Seven Seas, 2003. Sinbad was a thief, a liar, and a coward. When his best friend Proteus was sentenced to death for a crime Sinbad was framed for, his first instinct was to run. Marina shamed him into doing the right thing. Even then, Sinbad resisted. He believed in self-preservation, not honor. When Sinbad returned to Syracuse knowing he'd be executed, when he chose friendship over freedom, he became a hero through choice. DreamWorks showed that redemption isn't about being good, it's about choosing others over yourself when it matters most. Shrek 2, 2004. Shrek thought the hard part was over, but meeting Fiona's parents revealed new insecurities. Her father hired an assassin to kill him. Shrek felt like he wasn't enough, so he drank a potion that transformed him into a handsome human. He thought becoming better would fix everything. But Fiona didn't want a prince. She wanted Shrek. When Shrek chose to be himself rather than what others wanted, DreamWorks reinforced their message: self-acceptance is the real transformation. Shark Tale 2004. Oscar was a con artist who built his entire life on a lie. When a shark accidentally died near him, Oscar claimed he killed it. He became the Shark Slayer, famous and beloved. But the lie grew bigger, more dangerous, and more complicated. He enjoyed the fame too much to confess. When the mob came after him and his friends were endangered, Oscar had to choose between maintaining the lie or facing humiliation. He told the truth, lost everything, and discovered that being real was better than being fake. DreamWorks showed that integrity matters more than reputation. Madagascar, 2005. Alex the lion loved his life at the Central Park Zoo. He was famous, pampered, and perfectly content. When they were shipped to Madagascar, Alex's true nature emerged. He was a predator, and his instincts terrified him. The moment he nearly attacked Marty, his best friend, Alex realized he was dangerous. He isolated himself, ashamed of what he was. But Marty didn't abandon him. Alex learned to balance his nature with his values. DreamWorks showed that being something dangerous while wanting to be good is a struggle worth having. Over the Hedge, 2006. RJ the raccoon was a con artist from the start. He stole food from a hibernating bear, lost it all, and had 1 week to replace it or die. So he manipulated a group of naive forest animals into stealing from humans. He lied about everything and didn't care if they got hurt. But as he spent time with his makeshift family, guilt crept in. When he had to choose between handing over his friends or facing death, he chose his friends. DreamWorks showed that selfishness can be unlearned, and that family can change someone fundamentally. Flushed away, 2006. Roddy was a pampered pet rat living in a Kensington mansion. He looked down on common rats and valued possessions over people. When he was flushed into the sewers, Roddy's privileged worldview shattered. He met Rita, a street-smart scavenger, and initially tried to manipulate her. But the underground world taught him that worth isn't measured by wealth. When he chose to stay in the sewers to help Rita and her family instead of returning to his empty mansion, Roddy learned that connection matters more than comfort. Shrek the Third, 2007. Shrek panicked when he learned Fiona was pregnant. He didn't want to be king or a father. He went searching for Arthur, the next heir, as an escape plan. Throughout the journey, Shrek projected his insecurities onto Arthur, nearly destroying the young man's confidence. When Shrek finally accepted that running from responsibility doesn't make it disappear, he returned to face both kingship and fatherhood. Growth isn't comfortable, but it's necessary. B-Movie, 2007. Barry Benson didn't want the life chosen for him. He questioned the bee hierarchy and discovered humans were stealing their honey. His lawsuit against humanity succeeded, but had devastating consequences. Without bees pollinating, flowers died, and the ecosystem collapsed. Barry's self-righteousness nearly destroyed the world. He had to fix his mess by helping flowers bloom again. DreamWorks showed that rebellion without considering consequences is just destruction with good intentions. Kung Fu Panda, 2008. Po was the least likely hero in all of China. A clumsy panda who worked in his father's noodle shop, Po dreamed of kung fu but lacked discipline. When he was accidentally chosen as the dragon warrior, everyone knew it was a mistake, including Po. When Po discovered the dragon scroll was blank, he understood. Belief in yourself is the only magic that matters. He defeated Tai Lung through his own unique style. DreamWorks showed that heroism doesn't require perfection. It requires showing up and trying. Madagascar escaped to Africa, 2008. Alex returned to Africa and met his father, the alpha lion. He tried to prove himself through traditional strength but failed. His father was disappointed. Alex felt inadequate. But when the pride needed water and Alex used creativity to solve the problem, he proved leadership comes in many forms. Monsters vs. Aliens, 2009. Susan only cared about her wedding and her fiancé Derek. When a meteorite turned her into a giant, she was devastated. She wanted her old life back desperately. Derek rejected her, and Susan was sent to a secret facility with other monsters. She initially resented her new form and new life. But when Earth was invaded and only the monsters could save it, Susan discovered her strength. When Derek wanted her back only if she became small again, Susan realized her worth wasn't tied to his approval. She chose to stay giant and powerful. Megamind, 2010. Megamind was born to be a villain. He crashed on Earth as a baby and ended up in a prison. Every time he tried to be good, he failed. So he leaned into villainy. For years, he fought Metro Man in elaborate battles that always ended the same way. Megamind lost. When Megamind accidentally killed Metro Man, he didn't know what to do with himself, so he created a new hero, Titan. But Titan became a real threat, and suddenly the former villain had to become the hero. The film asked, what if the villain was only bad because that's what everyone expected? When the city finally cheered for Megamind, he found what he'd always wanted, acceptance. DreamWorks created their most explicit anti-hero story, Shrek Forever After 2010. Shrek had everything, a family, friends, respect, but he missed being feared. In a moment of frustration, he made a deal with Rumpelstiltskin and erased his own existence. In the alternate reality, Fiona didn't know him, his children were never born, and Far, Far Away was a dystopia. Shrek had to fight for the life he'd taken for granted. He learned that the mundane, the routine, the everyday chaos, that was the happily ever after. Appreciation comes from loss. Puss in Boots, 2011. Puss in Boots was an outlaw, a thief, and a legend. His past haunted him. He'd betrayed his childhood friend Humpty Dumpty. When Humpty reappeared with a plan to steal magic beans, Puss was torn between loyalty and morality. The heist went wrong, the town was endangered, and Puss had to face the consequences. He stayed and fought, clearing his name through genuine heroism. Your past doesn't define your future. Madagascar 3, Europe's Most Wanted, 2012. Alex, Marty, Gloria, and Melman joined a circus under false pretenses. They needed the circus to get home and didn't care about the performers' dreams. But as they performed together, as they saw the circus animals' struggles and hopes, they stopped using them and started helping them. When they had a chance to return to New York, they chose to stay with the circus. Home isn't a place, it's the people who accept you. Rise of the Guardians, 2012. Jack Frost had been invisible for 300 years. No one believed in him, so he caused mischief without consequences. When the Guardians recruited him to fight Pitch Black, Jack didn't want the responsibility. He didn't believe in himself or understand his purpose. When he recovered his memories and learned he died saving his sister, he understood. He'd always been a guardian. He just needed to believe it. Accepting responsibility is a gift, not a burden. The Croods, 2013. Grug's fear nearly destroyed his family. He kept them trapped in a cave, terrified of the outside world. His rule was simple: never not be afraid. When Eep met Guy and Grug's control shattered, he resisted every new idea and clung to old ways. When the world literally fell apart and the cave was no longer safe, Grug had to change or watch his family die. When he threw his family to safety and seemingly sacrificed himself, he proved that love means letting go of control. Turbo 2013. Turbo was a garden snail obsessed with being fast and famous. When he gained super speed through a freak accident, Turbo saw only personal glory. He wanted to win the Indy 500 for himself, not for the community that supported him. His obsession with fame made him selfish. But his pit crew, other snails, and Tito showed him that winning alone means nothing. When Turbo crossed the finish line, he'd learned that success is sweeter when shared. Mr. Peabody and Sherman 2014. Mr. Peabody was a genius who didn't understand emotions. He adopted Sherman and gave him everything: education, adventures through time, but never gave him warmth. He treated parenting like a science project. When Sherman used the time machine without permission and caused chaos, Mr. Peabody's perfect system collapsed. When he risked everything to save Sherman and finally said, "I love you," he became the father Sherman needed. Intelligence without empathy creates distance. Penguins of Madagascar 2014. Skipper was a reckless leader who rarely listened to his team. The penguins caused chaos wherever they went, often making situations worse. When Dave the Octopus sought revenge against all penguins, Skipper's overconfidence put everyone at risk. Through teamwork and actually listening to Kowalski, Rico, and Private, Skipper learned that leadership isn't about always being right. It's about trusting your team. Even chaotic troublemakers can become heroes when they work together. Home 2015. O accidentally put his entire species in danger. He sent a party invitation to the entire galaxy, including the Boov's enemies. His mistake forced his people to flee. He wasn't trying to be selfish, he just wanted friends, but his actions had consequences. Meeting tip: a human girl searching for her mother changed him. Through helping her, O learned that friendship requires sacrifice, and that thinking of others makes you stronger. Mistakes don't define you, your response to them does. Kung Fu Panda 3, 2016. Po had become the dragon warrior, but he still doubted himself. When Shifu asked him to teach Kung Fu, Po panicked. When his biological father appeared, Po was torn between two families. And when Kai threatened to destroy everything, Po felt inadequate. But Po taught the pandas to fight using their natural abilities, instead of forcing them into traditional Kung Fu. When he defeated Kai with Chi, given by those who believed in him, DreamWorks reinforced, you don't need to be perfect, you need to be yourself. Trolls 2016. After his grandmother was eaten by a Bergen because of his singing, Branch shut down emotionally. He stopped singing, turned gray, built a survival bunker, and pushed everyone away. He believed happiness was dangerous, but Poppy's optimism was relentless. Through helping rescue their friends, Branch's colors slowly returned. When he finally sang again, it wasn't because the trauma disappeared. It was because he chose connection over fear. Healing isn't about forgetting, it's about letting people in. The Boss Baby, 2017. Boss Baby was literally a corporate agent infiltrating a family. He manipulated Tim's parents and cared only about his mission. He wasn't there to be a brother. Tim hated him, and the feeling was mutual. But when their mission forced them to work together, something changed. When Boss Baby had to choose between returning to Baby Corp or staying with his family, he chose family. Even the most corporate, emotionless character can learn to love when given the chance. Captain Underpants, 2017. George and Harold were pranksters who turned their mean principal into a superhero. Their creation, Captain Underpants, was absurd, incompetent, and somehow still heroic. He defeated villains through dumb luck and underwear-based combat. The film celebrated rebellion, creativity, and the idea that heroes don't have to be serious. How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World 2019. Hiccup had spent 3 films proving humans and dragons could coexist. But as chief of Burke, he struggled with leadership and relied too heavily on Toothless. When Grimmel hunted dragons and the Hidden World was discovered, Hiccup faced an impossible choice. He wanted to keep Toothless, but keeping him meant endangering all dragons. When he said goodbye to Toothless, Hiccup finally became the leader Burke needed. Sometimes protecting what you love means losing it. Abominable 2019. After her father's death, Yi threw herself into work, avoiding her mother and grandmother. When she found a Yeti named Everest, she saw an escape, a journey that meant running from grief. Her friends forced themselves into her quest. Through helping Everest return home, Yi learned that healing happens through connection, not isolation. Trolls World Tour 2020. Queen Barb wanted to unite all trolls, but through domination, not harmony. She believed rock music was superior and tried to destroy all other genres. Poppy initially wanted to unite everyone too, but learned you can't force unity. When Barb realized that diversity makes music and the world richer, she chose collaboration over conquest. The Croods, A New Age 2020. Phil Betterman lived in a technologically advanced treehouse and looked down on the primitive Croods. He was controlling, elitist, and believed his way was the only right way. When both families were captured, Phil had to rely on the Croods' survival skills. He learned that intelligence comes in many forms and that different doesn't mean inferior. Spirit Untamed, 2021. Lucky Prescott was rebellious and reckless, constantly running from her responsibilities. She resented her father's rules and didn't want to be told what to do. When she befriended Spirit, a wild Mustang, Lucky's recklessness put both of them in danger. She had to learn that freedom without responsibility is just selfishness. When Wranglers tried to capture Spirit, Lucky fought to protect him, not recklessly, but thoughtfully. She'd learned that caring about someone means thinking beyond yourself. The Bad Guys, 2022. Mr. Wolf was a master thief who'd been bad his whole life. Society expected wolves to be villains, so he became one. When his crew was caught, Wolf made a deal: pretend to reform to avoid prison. It started as a con. But when Wolf experienced what it felt like to be trusted, something shifted. When he discovered Marmalade was the real villain and the crew came together to stop him, they proved that being bad was a choice, not destiny. DreamWorks asked whether people can change if society never gives them a chance. The answer was yes, but only if they choose to. Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, 2022. Puss in Boots had lived 9 lives recklessly. When he lost his 8th life, fear entered his world for the first time. Death himself began hunting him, and Puss ran. The legendary outlaw became a coward hiding in a litter box. His quest for the wishing star was about avoiding death. But through Kitty and Perito, Puss learned that running from fear gives it power. When he finally faced death, he didn't fight without fear, he fought with it. I know I can't win, but I'm not done living yet. Death respected that. Accepting mortality doesn't make you weak, it makes life precious. Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken, 2023. Ruby lived in hiding, suppressing her true nature to fit in. As a Kraken in a human world, she wanted to be normal. When her powers emerged and she learned her family history, Ruby was torn between 2 identities. Her journey was about accepting that you can't shrink yourself to make others comfortable. The most heroic thing you can do is be authentically yourself. Kung Fu Panda, 2024. Po had become the spiritual leader, but he wasn't ready to let go. When Shifu asked him to choose a successor, Po panicked. Meeting Zhen, a street thief working for the Chameleon, forced Po to grow. He believed in her when she didn't believe in herself. When Zhen chose redemption and helped Po defeat the Chameleon, she proved that where you come from doesn't determine where you go. Po learned that being a leader means empowering others, not holding on to power. Orion and the Dark, 2024. Orion was afraid of everything: the dark, social situations, failure, death. His anxiety controlled his life. When dark, a literal embodiment of nighttime, took him on a journey, Orion had to confront every fear. He learned that darkness isn't evil, it's necessary. That fear, in healthy doses, keeps you safe rather than small. By accepting his fears instead of being ruled by them, Orion found courage. DreamWorks showed that anxiety doesn't make you weak. How you handle it determines your strength. The Wild Robot, 2024. Roz was a service robot activated by accident on a wild island with no humans. She didn't belong. Animals fled from her. She didn't understand their world. But Roz adapted, learning their language and behaviors. When she found an orphaned gosling, she became a mother, not because her programming demanded it, but because he needed her. Raising Bright Bill meant teaching him to fly and survive in a world that questioned why a robot was raising a bird. When a storm threatened the island, Roz stood between destruction and the family she'd built. She wasn't programmed to sacrifice, she chose it. DreamWorks showed that home isn't where you're built, it's where you're needed. And family isn't about programming, it's about showing up every day. From 1998 to 2024, DreamWorks has given us something Disney rarely did: heroes who started broken. Ogres who wanted isolation, villains who wanted acceptance, thieves who wanted redemption, leaders who doubted themselves. They've shown us that heroism isn't about being perfect, it's about choosing to be better. These anti-heroes taught us that your beginning doesn't determine your ending, that society's expectations don't define you, that making mistakes doesn't make you irredeemable. They taught us that the most powerful transformation isn't physical, it's the choice to change when everyone expects you to stay the same. Because sometimes the best heroes are the ones who had to fight themselves before they could fight for others. See you guys at our next story. Don't forget to like and subscribe.